Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Paul from Guitar Gear Connection. On this episode, I'm going to be taking my 2010 Gibson Les Paul Traditional Pro and transforming it into a 1957 58 spec George Harrison Lucy Les Paul. So stick around and let's see what it takes to make the transformation. Let's first start off with a quick 1-minute history lesson on George's Les Paul. Originally, it was a gold top dated December 19th, 1957. Around 1966, Rick Derringer from the McCoys sent the heavily worn guitar back to the factory for a full refinish. Popular at the time was Gibson SG's Red. Still unhappy with the guitar after the refinish, Derringer sells it to a music shop in New York. Shortly after, Eric Clapton purchases it. In 1968, it was lent to George Harrison, and he names it Lucy after Lucille Ball's red hair from I Love Lucy. So knowing I needed a red Les Paul, I started my journey. I was never a big fan of them, to be honest. Growing up, I always associated the design with a much different scene than the Beatles. Also, heavy guitars just aren't my thing, but they do play great, and I needed some diversity in my collection. So there's a bunch of different models. Which one to get? Buying a true vintage 57-58 definitely was not an option. Custom shop Harrison models were up on Reverb, but a $20,000 to almost $85,000 price range definitely was not an option either. There are a few others floating around, but not in the price range I wanted. With those being the only proper options, every other Les Paul I get would need some modifications to achieve Lucy. From time to time, I would see wine red traditional pros pop up at a great price. Though the wine red is pretty dark in certain lighting, the pricing helped me overcome that hiccup. I patiently waited for the right one, and oh boy did it, allowing me a full transformation well under $1,800. I bought pickup covers to make it a bit closer to George's, but then I quickly lost interest. Fast forward a few months later, and I score an SG that I made a mod video on. This sparked my interest in reviving my Lucy Spec Les Paul build. The first mod is the truss rod cover. George's had the word custom written down the middle. After a bit of hunting, I found one on eBay that did the trick. George's didn't appear to have a wide bevel edge, so I didn't go over the top on this part. As for the pickguard, I really can't tell much of a difference between vintage and new, so I decided to leave that alone for now. Next was the tuners. The LP I purchased came with locking Grover tuners, so thankfully I didn't have to drill new holes or modify anything to get the standard Grover 102 ends on that I ordered from StewMac. I got out my deep 10mm socket, Phillips head screwdriver, and got to work. While the tuners were off, I took the opportunity to buff out the back and sides. Standard LPs come with a full finished back, whereas some traditionals are left needing some finish work. I got out my buffer, pads, and some good cutting cream. I just wished that I could buff away the Les Paul logo. Once that was finished, I put on the new Grover tuners just as easy as they came off. Next up was the bridge conversion. My LP came with a Nashville style bridge, whereas period correct would have been ABR1. Over to Tone Pros I went and picked up their version of the ABR1. Now in order to get the ABR1 to fit, an adapter is needed. On Reverb I was able to get the conversion adapter studs to go from larger size posts to smaller. As you would imagine, this job was extremely easy. Just don't forget to intonate after. One area I decided to save a penny was the knobs. Mine's looked close enough to Lucy that I decided to leave things alone. A small but often overlooked detail was the switch washer. George didn't have one on during his time with the Beatles. Wiring is the next job to tackle. I am a bit mad at myself for being so excited to get the new parts on, that I stripped the guitar down without doing a full sound demo to compare the old harness and pickups with the new. For now, the harness sound comparison is definitely out the window, but stay tuned for some humbucker testing coming up. As mentioned in previous videos, when I did the vintage harness mod on my Rickenbacker 360 12-string, the sound transformation was even greater than what putting new pickups in would have done. So over to Kelling Sound on eBay I went. He makes quality custom harnesses for pretty much any guitar you could think of, and at a price better than most of those run-of-the-mill harnesses. I was able to get a true 57-58 spec wiring harness, just like what George had in Lucy. The installation was straightforward. As always, make sure you have a decent soldering iron that's adjustable. Directions were supplied on exactly what needed to be soldered. Now the pickups. I did a poll on one of the Facebook Les Paul groups asking for 57-58 spec recommendations. I was hoping to find a common pickup that everyone would suggest. Instead, I was overwhelmed with the almost 30 different brand suggestions, most of those I never even heard of. The top most suggested pickup was the Gibson 57 Classics. But with Lucy having the Alnico 3s, I felt the newly released to the public custom buckers were the right ones for me. Following the diagram Kelling Sound sent with the harness, the installation was easy peasy. Also, in order to finish up the pickup assembly, M69 pickup rings are needed for the full vintage look. Back in the day, the rings were much taller compared to the newer Gibsons today. Over to Reverb I went and ordered a pack of cream M69s to finalize my pickup install, as well as finalizing my Les Paul 1957-58 spec George Harrison Lucy conversion. So let's break down the total cost. The truss rod cover was $13, the Grover tuners was $64, ABR1 bridge was $87, ABR1 bridge conversion post was $19, the M69 pickup rings was $22, and of course the most expensive thing, the custom buckers, at $523. So for a grand total of $729.73. So if you have a Gibson style Lucy Les Paul, please let me know. I would love to hear all about it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please like and subscribe to this channel. It's what keeps me going. And check out my Instagram. Tons of cool pictures and videos there as well.